Evening, everyone. Welcome to the Anaheim Elementary School District March 10th board meeting. I'm AESD Board President Mark Lopez, and I call this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. This meeting is being conducted telephonically and by means of live video broadcast on our Anaheim Elementary YouTube channel for members of the public. Board members and cabinet members will be video conferencing together to assist in managing the logistics of the meeting. For English, you may connect by phone as follows. Call 530-395-0655. When asked, type in the PIN 737-270-192#. Para español, puede conectarse por teléfono de la siguiente manera. Llame al 475-522-0293. Cuando se le pida, presione el PIN 575-609-579 y el símbolo pound. Any member of the public has an opportunity to address the board by submitting comments by 12 p.m. on Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, online via an electronic form as outlined in the public speakers portion of this agenda. Submissions will be read aloud during the board meeting by the board president or designee. Let's begin with the board roll call vote. Board member Dr. Paulo Macalus.
Here.
Board member Ryan A. Rellis. Board member Juan G. Alvarez.
Present.
Board clerk Jackie Philbeck.
Here.
All right, and I am board president Mark A. Lopez. As mentioned, item 1B, public speakers for closed session items. There are no public speakers for closed session items tonight. Item number 2, adjournment to closed session. Is there a motion? All right, sound like a motion from Rellis. Is there a second?
Second, Philbeck.
All right, and seconded by board clerk Philbeck. All right, we'll start with our roll call vote with Dr. Macalus.
Aye.
Thank you. Board member Rellis. Board member Rellis, I think that you might still be muted.
Aye.
Okay, there we go. Board member Alvarez.
Aye.
Board clerk Philbeck.
Aye.
I also vote aye. 5-0. We will adjourn to closed session. Dr. Downey, can you hear me?
How about now?
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Anaheim Elementary School District March 10th board meeting. I am AESD Board President Mark Lopez, broadcasting live from AESD Boardroom. I call this meeting to order at 6:55 p.m. This meeting is being conducted telephonically and by means of live video broadcast on our Anaheim Elementary YouTube channel for members of the public. Board members and cabinet members will be video conferencing together to assist in managing the logistics of the meeting. For English, you may connect by phone as follows. Call 530-395-0655. When asked, type in the PIN 737-270-192#. Spanish interpretation of the board meeting is available to attendees. Para español, puede conectarse por teléfono de la siguiente manera. Llame al 475-522-0293. Cuando se le pida, presione el PIN 575-609-579 y el símbolo pound. A few reminders, please mute your microphone when you join the meeting. Unmute when you are announced to speak. And it is important to honor everyone's voice while they are speaking, so please limit any chats during presentations. Board members, tonight all voting will be by roll call vote. When motioning or seconding an item, please state your name. For any items being discussed, please state your name before discussing the item. Thank you. Let's begin with the flag salute. If you are in the boardroom, be mindful of your headphones when you stand up.
Please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Downing. Item 3B, introductions and roll call. Dr. Paulo Magala.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Board Member Ryan A. Rellis.
Present.
Board Member Juan G. Alvarez.
Present.
Board Clerk Jackie Philbeck.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Board President Mark A. Lopez. We have Superintendent Dr. Christopher Downing.
Good evening, everyone.
Our Assistant Superintendent Educational Services, Dr. Mary Grace.
Hi, good evening.
Assistant Superintendent Human Resources, Dina Melland.
Good evening.
Assistant Superintendent Administrative Services, Jesse Chavarria.
Good evening, everyone.
Senior Director of School Safety and Operations, Tracy Golden.
Good evening, everyone.
Our Senior Administrative Assistant, Iris Camacho.
Hello, everybody.
We have our interpreters, Mary Madrigal and Alina Avilar Roque.
Good evening, everyone.
And our Technology Support Technician, Janice Cato.
Good evening, everyone.
All right, good evening to all. Item 3C, report of closed session actions taken. There are none. Item 3D, adoption of agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Magalis,
Second, Rellis.
seconded by Board Member Rellis. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Dr. Magalis,
Aye.
Trustee Rellis,
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez,
Aye.
Board Clerk Philbeck.
Aye.
I also vote aye, passes 5-0. Item number 4, special order of business. There are none. Item 5, news and updates. 5A is our parent leadership group updates. There are no parent leadership group updates tonight. Item 5B, association updates. There are no association updates tonight. Item 5C, district news and updates, communications and public information. There are no district news and updates. Item 6, public speakers. These are speakers on agenda or non-agenda items. There are 6 public comments submitted. Ms. Camacho.
First public comment submitted by Deborah Resnick. I would like to make a comment in regards to the March 3 decision to reopen. I am asking the board to reconsider their vote since AESD has decided not to reopen this year. Since again, many of our teachers and other staff will not be fully vaccinated by the proposed opening date. Our numbers in Anaheim are still not considered safe enough to return to in-person teaching and learning. And historically, numbers of cases have increased after holidays and vacations. I am also deeply concerned at the messages going out to parents via the PLI and social media regarding the inaccurate information that parents who wish to stay online may stay with their current teacher. This has not been negotiated, and teachers are already overwhelmed without the suggestion that we should be doing both face-to-face and virtual learning simultaneously. To teach both at the same time would mean that I would need to be in front of my camera while teaching, which doesn't allow me to move around my class and really help the students who are in my classroom. This would be the same as me teaching at home online. Next public comment submitted by AESD staff. My name is Cindy Timothy, and as teacher, I continue to have a number of concerns regarding the amended school reopening plan. I cannot understand or support your vote to approve mass COVID-19 testing at a potential cost of $2 million. To start testing students and teachers as early as March 15th for a return to site date ranging from April 12th through 20th does not make sense. Families are likely to travel during AESD's spring break and could potentially contract COVID-19. Returning to site immediately following spring break and the potential exposures does not deem that test taken a month prior accurate any longer. A student or teacher could test negative on March 15th and return to school on April 12th through 20th, perhaps having contracted the virus between those dates. Data shows that COVID-19 numbers escalate after holiday breaks, so there is no reason to assume that this will not also happen after our spring break. Returning to in-person live instruction immediately following the spring is unwise in my opinion. Pre-K students will also certainly experience a tremendously wide range of emotions on those first days of live in-person learning. To have them return April 12th through 13th for 1 day a week for the remainder of the school year will make for a total of only 8 to 9 days of live in-person instruction. I can say with 100% certainty from my professional experience that those 8 to 9 days will be filled with tears, screaming, kicking, and crying, as the first few days and weeks of school for these youngest scholars is the hardest part of the year. Going through those extreme emotions once a week for 8 to 9 weeks is definitely not what is best for them. TK and K students will also certainly experience a tremendously wide range of emotions on those first days of live in-person learning. To have them return April 12th through 13th for 2 days a week for the remainder of the school year will make for a total of only 16 to 18 days of live instruction. I can again say with certainty from experience that those 16 to 18 days will be filled with tears, screaming, kicking, crying, and running, as the first few days and weeks of those of school for these young scholars is the hardest part of the year. Going through those extreme emotions twice a week for 8 to 9 weeks is definitely not what is best for them. I do want to return to site to provide in-person instruction. However, I want to do so safely. Many teachers have not been able to secure their first and or second injections. Remaining in distance learning through the end of the school year will give teachers plenty of time to do so. I feel that the tremendous disruption that returning to in-person instruction will cause at this point in the year is not what's best for students. Finishing this school year virtually and returning to sites in August to begin the 2021-2022 school year to live in person is the best plan for all 6 stakeholders involved. Next public comment submitted by Sarah, AESD staff. Dear AESD board members, thank you for continuing to keep students, staff, and community safety a priority. I am proud to work for a district that has truly put safety first in the midst of this pandemic. I feel that our district has gone above and beyond with safety protocols compared to other districts. I also appreciate the fact that specific Anaheim data has been a top priority rather than Orange County as a whole when it comes to data analysis and decision making. I look forward to the day when we can safely return to in-person instruction. However, I have concerns with the current plan. The CDC is expecting a spring surge in COVID-19 cases. I ask that you truly consider whether returning after spring break will be safe for students, staff, and families. Another concern I have is the quality of instruction with the hybrid model. Students will be losing 2 days of interaction and direct instruction from their teachers. It is agreed upon that students at home will be viewing the in-person instruction. They will not have the same interaction and feedback from the teacher, who will be focusing on students in the classroom. As a parent, I would not want my child watching peers learn in the classroom while sitting at home with little to no interaction with the teacher. Upon returning to an in-person hybrid model, it will take time for teachers and students to become accustomed to new routines and procedures. Add to this multiple days of standardized state testing. This all results in limited instructional days. Are the benefits of this blended model worth the risk to anyone involved? Thank you for your consideration. Next, public comment, AESD parent. Good afternoon, esteemed members of the board. I want to share with you a little insight regarding how your decision to return to in-person learning has impacted my home. I have an 11-year-old 6th grader who, like the rest of our extended family, has dealt with devastating loss as a result of COVID-19. Last week, she watched her uncle express his concerns regarding opening our schools. She was heartbroken that other board members did not take in consideration the impact that in-person learning would have on families very much like ours, a multi-generational family living under one roof. She was concerned that the board members that often visited her school when it was in session did not seem moved by the fact that in-person learning would result in an inevitable spike in cases in our community and possibly lead to even more losses. And then my 11-year-old, a child that should not be worried about how to keep others safe, detailed to me how she had a plan if she had to go back. She said, I will come home and shower and change before I talk to my abuelos. That way, I don't have to put them at risk. I don't know about you all, but I do not think that at 11 years old, any child should have to worry about how her going to school could put others in danger. As a licensed clinical social worker, I cannot help but think about how many other children in our district are going to be struggling with levels of anxiety. I do not think our district staff and teachers are prepared to manage. In fact, you may be worried about learning loss, but have you done the research about learning and trauma? Do you know that learning will not and cannot occur when a child is in a heightened stress response state? How do you think that a room full of anxious 11-year-olds will perform on standardized testing? And what about your teachers who have carried the weight of parent and district concerns throughout the pandemic while juggling their own fears, anxiety, and grief? I want to believe that all these factors were taken in consideration when the board made their decision last week. I want to believe, because if not, then the only feeling left is shame and disappointment that a few individuals would have put their own agendas ahead of families and students. The next public comment submitted by Michael Chen, AESD staff. Dear AESD board members, superintendent, and cabinet, I would like to present two reasons, one related to safety and the other to education, why we should continue with distance learning for the remainder of the school year. First, regarding safety, the CDC warns of a potential surge in late March, early April from the B.1.1.7 and B.1.351 variants. When presented with the most recent data of new daily cases, which is a decrease of 70% from the beginning of the year, Dr. Fossey stated that the numbers are still really very high and that the current virus plateau is unacceptable. Historically, these plateaus precede the start of a new surge. Fossey also pointed to Europe as an example of how a drop in cases can lead to a new surge. And if you look at what happened in Europe a few weeks ago, they're usually a couple of weeks ahead of us in patterns. They were coming down too, then they plateaued. And over the last week or so, they've had about 9% increase in cases, parentheses, face the nation, March 7, 2021. Many health experts also warn about the high risk of transmission during spring break as families travel and gather in large groups, as well as the current vaccination rate not keeping up with the spread of new variants. These warnings should inform us when we weigh the risk of returning for only a few half days of in-person instruction. Second, regarding education, students will not be interacting and learning directly from their teacher twice a week, which is a detriment to their education. Even if it's agreed upon that students from home are able to view in-person instruction, their learning will be severely impacted. Engagement and troubleshooting technology issues with students at home, for example, resetting the screen share when students inform me that it's frozen or glitching, will be hindered with the blended model, as I will be giving my attention to in-person students. The blended model will result in discombobulated and decreased instruction, a lack of cohesiveness in the planning of curriculum, a disruption of all that is working with the current model. Teachers and students will need time to adjust to the new model and solve all the problems that will arise. Will there be enough Chromebooks to lend to students who forget to charge or leave them at home? Won't these Chromebooks be used by different students, increasing the risk of transmission? Also consider the age of elementary school children and their need for uninterrupted, consistent, engaging, and guided practice. The on and off nature of the blended model and the limited number of instructional days will be barriers to their success. Finally, I ask you to consider, is it worth the risk? I miss being with the students in person and look forward to fully reopening, but believe we should only reopen when the benefits outweigh the risks and barriers. Thank you for considering this important matter. The last public comment is submitted by Jesse Alvarez, AESD parent. I would like to address the board's decision for reopening schools. You may be thinking that my trustee voted against it, so my voice has been heard. In AESD, voting boundaries and school boundaries do not always align. My home school boundary is Man, which is in trustee area 1, but my voting area is 2. I do not get to vote for the person that represents me as a parent at Man, so I am here today appealing to my trustee to put the safety of our staff and families first. Since last week's vote, Anaheim has not moved to the red tier as predicted. There will be spring break in the high school district starting March 22nd, and our district will be on spring break starting April 2nd. There have been increased infections after every holiday break. I have heard of the plans of social emotional learning that will happen the first 2 weeks back to school. 2 weeks really means 4 days. In 4 days, the teachers will have to address the social emotional impacts related to 1 full year of distance learning, any trauma students suffered from COVID infection, and possibly death in their families, trauma related to the economic impacts that our families have suffered during the lockdown, and the anxiety related to returning to school during a global pandemic. For our little ones, this may be their first time on campus with all the anxiety and stress that goes with it. And for our older ones, they will have to adjust to a completely different routine than they remember. Then on top of all that, the added stress of standardized testing. While all of that is being addressed, they will also be teaching them all of the new routines to keep everyone safe while on campus. All of that will be addressed in 4 days. It's a plan, and I'm glad it's being addressed at all. But is it enough? In presentations from the district, they have stated that there have been no outbreaks related to in-person instruction in surrounding districts that have reopened. But there have been cases of infection in every district. Neighboring Placentia/Yorba Linda has 3 cases in the 14-day period. Cumulative cases are 209 students and 239 employees. Orange Unified has 1 active case in the elementary schools. However, their average student and staff population is only 351, a very low combined population compared to some of our schools that have student-only populations of 937, 933, and 910. Fullerton Elementary District has 4 active cases. Do we need an outbreak for us to say that it's not safe? Is even 1 possible death not enough to say it's not the time to gamble with the health of our students and staff? Trust me, even 1 death is enough to have a devastating impact on a family. If you do not feel that even 1 death is too many, you may be in the wrong business. That concludes the public comments for tonight.
All right, thank you, Ms. Camacho, and thank you to our public speakers. Item number 7, our superintendent's report. Item 7A is our 2020-21 second interim report. Mr. Chavarria, our Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, has a presentation.
Iris, are you presenting for me? Thank you. Good evening, Board President Lopez and board members. This evening, I'm presenting the second interim report for your approval. Before I get to the details of the report, I want to acknowledge the hard work of our fiscal and business teams and their respective leaders, Matt Slusser and Priscilla Martinez. These teams do an amazing job of putting all this information together for tonight's report. Next slide, please. At each of our budget presentations, the board will be informed of the alignment of the business and fiscal practices to the board's goals related to fiscal stability. Tonight's report highlights the board's commitment to efficiently allocate resources to support student learning and to continually monitor all district staffing levels, enrollment, revenues, and expenditures to maintain fiscal solvency. Next slide, please. So what is the second interim? The second interim is a board budget update reflecting the district revenues and expenditures from July 1st, 2020 through January 31, 2021. And using this information, the budget is updated with more current projections as to how the district will operate for the rest of the fiscal year. The next budget update will be in the form of the estimated actuals that will be presented to the board as part of the budget for 21-22 in June. Next slide, please. So the assumptions that are included in our second interim are the following: ADA funding, 1,579, LCFF fully funded, a cost of living adjustment as proposed by the Governor Newsom back in January of 2.31 for 2021, but the funding would not take place until 21-22, a STIRS rate of 16.15%, a PERS rate of 20.7%, and lottery funding unrestricted of $150 per ADA and restricted of $49 per ADA. Next slide, please. So some of the revenue changes since first interim. Under LCFF revenue, there was an adjustment to reflect the updated unduplicated count. At first interim, we estimated our unduplicated count to be 89% based on the information we had at that time. In December, our school sites and ed services did a tremendous job of reaching out to parents who had not completed their lunch applications, and this allowed this unduplicated count to increase from 89% to 90.4%. Under federal revenue, there were some adjustments to ESSER 1 and title allocations. And under other state revenue, we had to make an adjustment to reflect the actual amount of restricted state lottery funds that we will receive based on the actual student enrollment. And under other state, United Way site grants, although we receive a letter from the organization to their commitment to providing the funds, we do not recognize the revenue until we actually receive it. Next slide, please. So this table reflects the information on those changes from first interim to second interim that I just talked about in the previous slide. So as you can see, LCFF revenue, a change of $456,000. Federal revenue, a change of $34,000. State revenue, a change of $341,000. Local revenue, a change of $125,000. So overall, looking at first interim revenue in terms of changes into second interim, the difference there is $274,000. Next slide, please. This pie chart here gives you our revenue sources as a percentage of the overall budget. And as you can see, LCFF is our primary source in terms of the revenue we receive as a district. Next slide. So some of the changes in terms of our expenditures from first interim are the following. Salaries and benefits, we had some vacant positions, both certificated and classified. And so there was a savings in salaries and benefits related to those positions. In terms of books and supplies, PPE materials and other materials related to reopening costs were less than anticipated due to prices being lower than projected. Under services and other operating costs, due to distance learning, we did incur additional licensing and other services that were needed in order to support our teachers and students and to provide a better experience in terms of distance learning. And under capital outlay and other outgoing, we had a plan to replace some of our M&O district vehicles. It was a 2-year plan, but we had to expedite that plan given our current COVID situation and to ensure that every M&O employee had their own vehicle to drive. Next slide, please. So the table here reflects those changes that were mentioned in the previous slide. So certificated salaries, a change of $53,000. Classified salaries, a change of $384,000. And benefits, $141,000. In terms of supplies, a change of $531,000. The services that were mentioned, $1.1 million change there. Capital outlay, $158,000, and indirect costs, $6,000. So the overall change in terms of our expenditures from first interim to second interim, it's $170,000. Next slide, please. The pie chart here puts our different expenditures as a percentage of the overall budget. Once again, like it's always shown, our commitment to our employees. So that's the biggest pieces of the pie on certificated classified salaries and our benefits. Next slide, please. So in terms of our multi-year projections, the assumptions that we're making to create those multi-year projections are the following. So our CalPEDs are certified, and we have a P1 number now in terms of enrollment. So for 2021, the number is 15,345. We're projecting an enrollment of 15,100 for 21-22, and for 22-23, 14,900. Like it was previously mentioned, that COLA of 2.31% will be recognized in 21-22 because that's when we receive the funding. The governor is proposing a 1.5 COLA for 21-22, so together it's a 3.84 COLA for 21-22. And he's also proposing a 2.98% COLA for 22-23. If you recall back in first interim, all those COLAs were at 0 when we came to in terms of the multi-year projection. So this is good news in that sense. In terms of ESSER 2, these are the monies that were approved by the federal government back in December. We just submitted our plan in order, that the assurances you have to make to receive those funds. Since we have not received those funds, we're recognizing those funds for 21-22, and that's 19.1 million. We may have to make an adjustment in terms of our estimated actuals when we come back to you in June, because we may receive some of these funds before the end of the fiscal year. And in terms of cost, the STRS and PERS, the state is picking up that increase this year. Most of that increase is picked up next year as well in 21-22, but we would be responsible in 22-23 based on the information we have now. And in terms of a step and column expenditure for us, for 2021, it's 2.4 million, and we're projecting for 21-22 and 22-23 about 2.3 million each year. So looking at our revenue projection for 2021, 245.1 million, for 21-22, 243.9 million, and for 22-23, 218.1 million. Next slide, please. So the summary of our projected totals for 2021. So we're expecting revenue of 245.6 million, expenditures of 252.7, giving us a decrease there of $7 million. We have a beginning fund balance of 37.6 million. So we're projecting an ending fund balance in 2021 of 30.6 million. Next slide, please. For 21-22, we're estimating revenue to be 243.9 million. We're estimating expenditures to be 228.9 million, giving us a surplus of 15 million. So with the beginning fund balance of 30.6, and so we're projecting an ending fund balance in 21-22 of 45.6 million. Next slide, please. For 22-23, we're estimating revenues to be 218.1 million, estimated expenditures of 232.9 million, so a decrease there of 14.8 million, with the beginning fund balance of 45.6 million. So we're projecting an ending fund balance in 22-23 of $30.8 million. Next slide, please. So future considerations for us to consider that may affect our budget, like it was stated, enrollment projections, the rise in pension obligations that we would have to pick up in 22-23, current and future negotiations, textbook adoptions, health and welfare costs, special education, and of course, the current COVID-19 crisis and its impact on the state budget. Next slide, please. So in terms of legal requirements, we will be recommending a positive certification for our second interim, meaning that the district will be able to meet its obligations for the current year as well as the 2 outgoing years as well. Next slide. So in terms of next steps, we have a budget advisory committee meeting on March 25th. We will be bringing to the board the 2019-20 audit report on March 31st. We will be looking at the governor's May revision in terms of the 21-22 budget, state budget. We will have public hearings for LCAP and adopted budget in early June here with the board, and then of course an adopted budget in LCAP mid-June as well. Before I go to questions and comments, I do want to add additional information because it may be in your minds in terms of the extended learning allocation that the governor just recently signed I believe last week. That is not included in our second interim because we have not received those funds even though they're coming. And also the possible reopening funds that we may qualify for, those are not included there as well because even though we know the amounts, we don't know exactly yet when we will be recognizing those, but possibly before they might be included or probably will be included at the estimated actuals because the extended learning allocation, once we have a plan in place, we do expect to get the first allocation of those funds before the end of the fiscal year. And in some other good news, I know some of you have kept up with the rescue plan that It's being proposed at the federal level. Congress did approve that plan. Biden set to sign that on Friday. What that means for us, it's $122 billion to K through 12 schools. Our estimated allocation of that is about $42.5 million, which 20% does need to be set aside to address learning barriers or accelerate learning of our students. So that and the other good thing is that they did extend in terms of the use of those funds up to September of 2024. Okay, next slide, please. So I'll open it up for any questions or comments the board may have.
All right, board members, any comments? Go ahead, Dr. Magalis.
On the last point that you just talked about, Jesse, so we could use that until 2024. So would summer opportunities be a possibility we could use those funds?
I believe the extending learning monies that were approved last week by Governor Newsom do provide us about $14 million to use for either summer learning or extending the school day or extending the school year. And yes, the 20% that I just mentioned would be available for that type of use as well.
To be used until 2024?
That's correct.
2024.
September of 2024, yes.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Chavarria?
Thank you, Mr. Chavarria, for such a detailed report. I appreciate that. We all do.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chavarria, and thank your team as well for all our hard work you put into this. That takes us to item 7B. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the 2020-21 second interim report as presented. Education code requires school districts to file interim reports at least 2 times per year. The purpose of the interim report is to certify the district's financial condition at periodic intervals during the fiscal year. The second interim report reflects the reporting period as of January 31st, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved. Relis.
Second Alvarez.
All right, moved by Mr. Relis and seconded by Trustee Alvarez. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Dr. Magalis?
Aye.
Trustee Relis?
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez?
Aye.
And Board Clerk Philbeck?
Aye.
And Lopez also votes aye, passes 5-0. These presentations will be posted on the district website, Board of Education page tomorrow. That takes us to item number 8, consent calendar. Items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and are acted on by the board in one motion. There is no discussion of these items unless a member of the board, staff, or the public requests specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar. Are there any items to be pulled at this time? Dr. Magalis?
Nope.
Trustee Relis? Trustee Alvarez?
No, thank you.
All right. Board Clerk Philbeck? Seeing none. It is recommended the Board of Education ratify the following consent calendar items. Is there a motion?
So moved. Relis.
Second, Philbeck.
Moved by Trustee Relis and seconded by Board Clerk Philbeck. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll begin with Dr. Magalis.
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee Relis?
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez?
Aye.
Board Clerk Philbeck?
Aye.
Lopez also votes aye, passes 5-0. That takes us to item number 9 on our agenda. Action calendar. Item A is our superintendent's office. No items. 9B is educational services. It is recommended the Board of Education adopt resolution number 2020-21/44 in support of School Library Week, April 4th through 10th, 2021, throughout the Anaheim Elementary School District to celebrate school library media assistance in this important commemoration of all they do to help our students learn. Is there a motion?
Philbeck, I'd like to move this motion. Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Board Clerk Philbeck and seconded by Dr. Magalis. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will begin our vote a roll call vote with Dr. McCallus.
Aye.
Trustee Relis,
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez,
Aye.
Board Clerk Philbeck,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. That passes 5-0. Item 9C is our SELPA. There are no items. 9D, Human Resources. It is recommended the Board of Education adopt resolution number 2020-21/43 for the non-reelection of temporary certificated employees effective June 30th, 2021, as listed on Exhibit 9D.1. Is there a motion?
So moved. Relis.
Moved by Trustee Relis. Is there a second?
Second, Philbeck.
Seconded by Board Clerk Philbeck. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Dr. McCallus,
Aye.
Trustee Relis,
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez,
Aye.
Board Clerk Philbeck.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. Item 9E, Administrative Services. Is recommended the Board of Education approve the Long-Range Facility Master Plan Update and Priority Project List as prepared by LPA Inc. and presented at the February 24th, 2021 board meeting. Is there a motion for this item?
So moved. Alvarez.
Moved by Trustee Alvarez. Is there a second?
Second. Relis.
Thank you. Seconded by Trustee Relis. Any discussion? Seeing none, Dr. McCallus, our roll call vote.
Aye.
Trustee Relis,
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez,
Aye.
Board Clerk Philbeck.
Aye.
Lopez also votes aye. Passes 5-0. That takes us to item number 10, board discussion. 10A, board member activities related to school business. We will begin with Dr. Paulo McCallus.
All right. Hey, everyone. Good evening. Super excited to share that during Read Across America Day, I did read to sixth graders, Mrs. Rodriguez's sixth graders. I want to give a shout out to Jenny Frankie, the assistant principal, for organizing. I know other board members also read on that day. So thank you so much for organizing such an important day, even during this virtual setting. Also on March 2nd, I did attend the school reopening committee. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McCallus. That takes us to Trustee Relis.
Thank you. Like Dr. McCallus, I participated in lots of reading. I do have to admit, and I will confess, it was a little strenuous when they said, can you please find your own book for that appropriate age level? I was like, do I have any books for that grade? The first class I read was to a second, third grade class over at Franklin. Once again, super well organized. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody who helped in this process. On the 3rd, I went and read over at Price as well to Miss Cunningham's class, as well as Miss Austin's sixth grade class. Thankfully, I had some books that were more sixth grade level that I was proud to read, but once again, very well organized, and their use of the teams, just inviting, etc., was just awesome. And then I also was able to make a stop over at James Gwen and just check it out, walk through the facilities there and talk with Dr. Perez about the things going on there and the safety protocols. And then, of course, for me, I was just really thankful, and I want to give a shout out to Tracy Golden. Even though I work in the Anaheim Union High School District and they provided us with some codes, etc., Tracy was on it right away. I utilized that code, and I was able to actually go and get my first vaccine over at La Quinta High School. And it was just such an easy process, and how it related to the technology and the app that they had. Once you figure that first part off, that's the most difficult part in the beginning. But once it takes place, it's super easy. And I just want to give a shout out to you. So thank you, Tracy, and your team for making that very accessible to us. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Relis. Trustee Alvarez.
Good evening. Hey, last week I also attended the school reopening committee. I just want to thank everybody who comes to that committee. There's over 100 stakeholders there every time, providing input and asking tough questions. It's really great to observe that and be part of that. I also had the privilege of reading to Ms. Garcia's dual language kinder class last Friday at Patrick Henry. I read No lleves tu dragón a la biblioteca, so don't take your dragon to the library. It was just really fun and engaging, and a lot good change of scenery. I was welcomed with open arms to the classroom by everyone. Every child was in there just interacting with me, and also it was just great to co-teach. You don't really think about it, but it was really a co-teaching lesson that I had with Maestra Garcia that day. We were asking prodding questions. We were asking the kids to predict things and make inferences while we were reading the book, and we made real life connections, and I really enjoyed that. Big props to our dual language teachers and our kindergarten teachers. Kindergarten is super tough. I see it being taught every day from my own child's lens, and I couldn't do it. Just to be honest, I teach 7th and 8th grade math, but I could never do the job that our Anaheim elementary teachers do. And so kudos to all you for doing a great job and for being there for our kids. That's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Alvarez. We'll move to Board Clerk Philbeck.
Hi, just a short report tonight. I did, I've always got to throw in a webinar or two. I did participate in one webinar with Chalk. Again, they just have had the best webinars this whole past year, and it was called What is Our New Normal and When Are We Going to Get There? A lot of information regarding the vaccine rollout and clinical detail, updated quarantine recommendations and things like that. Just very informative, and I always appreciate that Chalk does such a good job putting those webinars out. And other than that, I also read for some of the classes, and Mr. Ellis, I would suggest that when you panic because you don't have a book, you do exactly what I do, which is call Kathleen Hurd and pull from her library. She left a bag on the porch for me, just so we were safe, and left a bag on that porch. And the only problem is she has so many good books, and they're so great, that I spent a fortune immediately getting on Amazon and ordering all of them because now I want to have them. So I'm even more ready for next year. And I've even ordered like Halloween books. It was so fun, but she's got them, and Marlene does too. So, but I read for Ms. O'Connor's second, third combo at Price, Bark George, which is really just a very fun book, and it's great for that age, like 2nd, 3rd grade. And I also read that Bark George for Mrs. Kellerman's 2-3 combo, and Mrs. Mayertz's 5th grade class. There was a beautiful book called Lion in the Library. And it was just, the illustrations on that book were just gorgeous. So I had a lot of fun reading that. And along with Read Across America, being part of First Five Commission, I was able to video a book, Chickens to the Rescue, at which they then posted through their format for everyone who wants to view it. And I didn't even realize until I went to see my little 3-year-old granddaughter that she ran up to me and was screaming chickens to the rescue. So she got to see it too, but that was really a lot of fun. And with that, thank you for listening, and that ends my report.
All right, thank you, Board Clerk Philbeck. I'll try to keep this brief then. I might have the longest board report here this evening. But I, like many of us, I was also able to present during our Read Across America invitations that we received from our school sites. Again, I want to thank Miss Frankie as well. She was able to assist me with obtaining a few books. I was able to peruse the Franklin Elementary Library. So I was able to see a couple of staff there safely on campus, and recommended a couple of books. Gerald and Piggy was a couple of selections that I was able to get. It was a first time read for me as well. So I want to thank Mrs. Davert and Miss Lou for letting me join their classes on that Tuesday last week to be able to read. I was very confident reading to our 1st and 2nd graders, kindergarten. My only moment of panic was when I got signed up for the 5th grade gate class So I kind of went into panic mode at that point because the first grade was more my pace, but I was able to kind of navigate my way through the 5th grade gate class as well. So thank you, both of you at Franklin and Miss Frankie, for your assistance. That same day, I was able to meet with a wonderful staff from both Patrick Henry Elementary and our Anaheim Elementary, our online academy. So I want to thank them for taking the time to meet with me. It was either a lot of the meetings have been at 7 a.m. or they've been about 2:30 p.m. After a long day of teaching our youngest residents, our students. I know we could all benefit from one less meeting, but a lot of them have shown up, and I appreciate all their feedback that they've been able to provide for me. It's given me a new perspective, and so I appreciate that. The following day, I didn't have enough Read Across America for my quota, so I ended up going to Price. So I want to thank Miss Medina, Miss Doherty for coordinating that and allowing me to join that class as well. I read the same book, so it kind of helped after the first reading. So I just read Gerald and Piggy again, since I had that one down. And then on March 4th, I was able to visit with our wonderful staff at Thomas Edison Elementary. So again, thank you for taking the time to meet with me there as well, for all the staff at Edison who was able to. And then over the weekend, also another shout out for our Tracy Golden, because I got an email from her. I've seen multiple emails over the past couple of weeks. Friday evening, I received an email, and as technologically challenged as I am, I was able to download the app, get the code. I was scheduled for my first vaccine appointment less than 48 hours later. So I got my first vaccine on Sunday afternoon. I didn't glow in the dark afterwards, didn't grow a tail or anything like that, didn't lose my vision. So I'm proud to report I definitely encourage those of us who are able to take advantage of that to do so. Definitely very important for our community. And then yesterday, I was able to meet, again, another 7 o'clock in the morning meeting with our staff at Lincoln. So I appreciate all the comments, all the questions that I was able to have a discussion with our staff there at another one of our great sites. So thank you very much. That will conclude my report. We will go ahead and move on to item number 11, future agenda items. We'll begin with Dr. Magalis. Any items that you would like agendized?
No, thank you.
None? All right. Trustee Relis, no items. Trustee Alvarez?
I do have a couple.
Okay.
I would like to agendize reconsideration for our in-person return to be moved to August as an agenda item for our next meeting, please. I would like to give our board a space to reconsider and demonstrate their compassion one time. And I also would like to add an agenda item where we could talk about a resolution regarding our stance as a board on standardized testing and how we would support or not support that. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Downing has those items on our next agenda. I'm seeing a head nod. Okay, thank you, Trustee Alvarez. Board Clerk Philbeck, go ahead.
No items, but I did forget to mention that I also had my first vaccine on Monday. So just wanted to mention, yes, one down, one to go, but no items for future agenda. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I have no agenda items to add either. So we'll go ahead and go to our adjournment. We will go ahead and adjourn until our next meeting, which will be March 31st, 2021. We will start as scheduled at 6:30 p.m. on that date. I now adjourn our meeting at 7:45 p.m. Have a great night, everyone.